Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today on this Tuesday brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort, and that includes Harm Dial standing by. Book your stay at the Bayside and enjoy the many amenities the hotel has to offer, such as oceanfront rooms, free parking, oceanfront restaurant, cafe, indoor and outdoor swimming pools, gym, and more. Call 250-248-8333. Go to their website, BaysideResortParksville.com. Harman Dial and Thomas Drance have come together from The Athletic to write an article on the Canucks entitled 9 UFAs Who Could Add Speed to the Vancouver Lineup.
Yeah, speed.
They've also written an article on possible buyout candidates, but we'll focus on the Canucks and adding speed. Harm Dial joins us now. Long time no talk to. Harm, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Doing great. I got the karaoke mic back.
Oh, my
I know you guys missed that.
We should have those full-time here. We have the headsets.
The microphone? Or
Yeah.
What you talking about?
The karaoke mic.
Yeah.
It looks
that
like
is nice.
He's going to break into Song Sung Blue by Neil Diamond. Probably not. Hey, Harm he has no idea about that song. I can tell.
When Doves Cry.
Hey,
Give it a shot.
Is speed something the Canucks desperately need, Harm, with your article in mind?
For sure. I mean, you look at what makes a team like the Florida Panthers special, and it's not just how physical they are, how tenacious they are, the skill that they have. It's also that they have a speed element. And I think the Canucks could absolutely use more of that, both up front and on the back end, because when we hear Rick Tocchet speaking about wanting to improve off the rush and generate more chances that way, well, part of that is also having defensemen that can join the rush and also then have the mobility to recover back defensively, which I think the Canucks have done a terrific job of identifying defensemen that have size, that are defensively responsible. We saw how much of a leap they took defending in their own end, but I think the next step is, can you find guys that can give you both? Plus, while also adding speed, skill, creativity to the forward group as well. I think that definitely is one of the needs that you want to prioritize, while also not getting away from your identity as being a heavier team that can win battles, of course.
Yeah, which it's tough to do. You want to increase that speed, but retain the size. Connor Brown, I believe, is on your list. And what has he done for his value in these playoffs? He's been real noticeable.
Yeah, well, honestly, going back to the regular season, this is a player that was expected to be in a top six role, play alongside Connor McDavid. He'd been a middle six forward for a really long time, tears his ACL in the 2022-23 season, and then this year is just an offensive black hole, and you're thinking, is this a guy that is really worth pursuing if he hits a free agent market? But watching him in these playoffs, it feels like he has the explosiveness in his speed back. And it's not just an eye test thing. The numbers actually bear that out. If you look at NHL Edge, his top speed in terms of miles per hour is way up compared to the regular season. And that's powering his forechecking. That's powering how well he's killing penalties, which the Oilers PK has been operating at nearly 94%. He's been a big part of that. And now he's doing more to drive a little bit of offense here and there. So if he hits the market and is available, I would really like him as a sort of fourth line PK defensively responsible player that can bring energy and fit the way that Rick Tocchet wants the Canucks to play.
Harman, you might be able to guess this, but our Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox, we're getting a lot of this. Hey, I'm paraphrasing here, but what happened to Ilya Mikheyev's speed? We know about the knee injury, and I know you're not a doctor, but is there still something there when it comes to NHL elite speed and Mikheyev?
You hope so. Again, going back to the NHL Edge data, it shows you that compared to compared to his previous seasons, Mikheyev's speed was down. So it's not just you saw it by the eye, but it also helps to know, okay, the numbers kind of bear that out too. We suspect obviously that's because of his ACL, and I think seeing Brown finally shake the rust off. And keeping in mind with Brown, he missed nearly the entire 2022-23 season. So he had a long recovery period for that season, for the summer, and it's only now in the playoffs, nearly about 2 years later, that he is finally back to close to 100% in terms of how quick he moves. I think that gives you some level of optimism that, okay, maybe Mikheyev can find another gear with his pace. I think there definitely is a chance that Mikheyev can bounce back, but I'm just not expecting him to fully live up to that contract at nearly $5 million and be a top six contributor, just because the legs may come back, but I don't think I ever trust the hands or the finishing.
Well, Harm, let's talk about the Canucks UFAs. Oh, boy, they got a ton of them. And who are you most concerned about leaving town and not being able to fill? You know, Patrick Alvin said we can find the next Joshua, but the next Joshua is not going to be here at training camp. He might be a year or two away. Who concerns you as who's on your list of don't leave town, keep them?
I'd say it's interesting. Well, Hronek, I know it's different because he's an RFA, but the reason I want to bring him up is I feel like in this market, a lot of people are talking about him as a player whose skill set is really easy to replace, and I think there's a recency bias element in that where, yeah, he faded down the stretch. He wasn't at his best in the playoffs. Dan Murphy also noted that despite what Hronek insisted publicly, that he was playing through injury, and I think if you look at, I did an article at the end of February looking at every team's first pair in the NHL. Hughes and Hronek didn't rank top 10, didn't rank top 5. They were number 1 in the NHL in terms of 5-on-5 goal differential, the best top pair in the NHL. I don't think, for as much as Quinn Hughes is mostly driving the bus on that, Hronek played a major role in that too. And look, I have my reservations. I don't necessarily want to pay him $8 million on a long-term extension. But this idea that you can just flip him and easily find somebody that can be the perfect partner for Quinn Hughes, I'm just not confident about that. So he's a player that sort of sticks out. It's funny because I look at Elias Lindholm and I think if his price tag is $7.5–8 million, I don't want to be the team that signs that next contract. But if you're talking about a player whose impact is going to be difficult to replace, he stands out because I'm looking at this free agent center market. And there are only a handful of guys that scored more than 30 points this season. So finding a legit third line center might be difficult. You may have to even look at shifting Pius Suter back to 3C because he was initially signed last summer to be a third line center. And maybe then you're in the market for another top 9 winger. And then there's, of course, Zadorov, where we love what he did in the playoffs. But again, if he's going to be a $5.5 million player on a long-term deal, not sure that I like the number. And at that point, you may want to look at, let's say, a Brendan Dillon who can bring you some of that size, bring you some of that defensive responsibility at potentially a fraction of the cost.
Harm, what about all these Gensel rumors? The Canucks were really after him at the trade deadline, and now it looks like, and we mentioned this, Donnie and I talked 2 weeks ago about Gensel making a pitch again on July 1st. Talk about him. He's not going to be cheap. The word is close to $9 million a year. That's a lot of money. What are your thoughts on Gensel?
I'd be all over it. I know he's going to cost a lot. I know there's going to be a lot of competition for him, but it's rare to find the opportunity to not just find a top 6 player, but a bona fide elite star. And that's exactly what Gensel is. Since the 2018-19 season, he ranks top 15 among all NHL players in goals. And in the past, I know people have sort of brought up, well, what is he going to look like away from Sidney Crosby? We got the answer in Carolina. He was dominant in the regular season down the stretch. He was outstanding for them in the playoffs. Between the regular season and playoffs, he was over a point per game. So that just goes to show you that he can mesh with any sort of top-end talent. And that's why I think he'd be the perfect fit to play with Elias Pettersson. He's got unreal hockey IQ. The way that he is able to get open, he can finish off the rush. He can finish off the cycle. But away from the puck, too, he is somebody that wins board battles, that can help you on the forecheck, that Rick Tocchet is going to trust him defensively. So I look at where the Canucks are at in their competitive cycle. These next few years are their window to contend for a Stanley Cup. So even though you may sign him to, let's say, a long-term deal, 7-year deal, maybe the last couple of years worry you, but that's a risk I'm willing to take because how often do you get the opportunity to add an elite player with zero acquisition costs? Because some of these other top 6 wingers that you might want to add on, let's say, the trade market to play with an Elias Pettersson, like a Nick Ehlers or Martin Necas, probably going to cost you an arm and a leg to acquire in terms of assets.
And very quickly, Harm, another player on your list of speedsters that could help the Canucks. This is intriguing. Chandler Stevenson of the Vegas Golden Knights. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Stevenson's one of the trickiest players, I think, to fully figure out in this free agent market because he has, I mean, before this season, he had back-to-back seasons in the 65-point range. He had that amazing playoff run with Vegas where he scored 10 goals and 20 points in 22 playoff games. And it wasn't just the points. He was third among Vegas forwards in ice time in that playoff run. So highly trusted. Eichel and Stone were the only forwards that averaged more minutes than him. But there are red flags, there are question marks in the sense that this year his production dropped to 51 points. He wasn't very good in the playoffs. And the bigger one for me is I love his versatility in being able to play center and wing, but when he's played center, it's always been with Mark Stone by his side. And we know Mark Stone is one of the best wingers in the NHL. So what does Stevenson look like if he is away from, away from Mark Stone? So ultimately, I think at the right price point, he'd be intriguing as either a guy that can play wing in your top six or be your third line center. But it has to be at the right price point because he's been put in a massive position to succeed in Vegas, and he has to show that he can do it elsewhere.
Excellent, Harm. Rolling in the deep. Adele, go.
Look, next time you guys have me on, I will do karaoke under one condition. It has to be a duet with Rick.
No.
Oh, done. Done.
Not a chance.
Done.
I don't even do it.
Harm, you'd have to brush up on your songs from the 80s in order to do that because anything past that is just not going to happen with this guy.
I've
Just
never
so
done
you know.
that sober. Never. Never. Never.
You've never done this show sober. It all works out. Harm, thanks for this. We'll get you back on.
Thanks, guys.
Good stuff.